Good day, and today we're going to do a little bit of history about English Restoration and the Enlightenment period. And the years for that are about 1660 to 1798. First, we'll look at what is the Restoration. Well, this refers to the restoration of the monarchy in England in 1660. Now, Charles II had spent his exile in France, and he was a patron of the arts and sciences when he came back to England. After that, you have James II, William and Mary, and Queen Anne. Scotland officially united with England to form Great Britain at this time, and Anne outlived all 16 of her children. You're also going to see into the 1700s George I, George II, and George III. Now, George III famously suffered from mental illness. He ruled for 60 years and had a lot of political blunders that resulted in the loss of the American colonies. Along with the Restoration is the Enlightenment period. Now, this is a philosophical movement that emphasized natural rights of life, liberty, and property. This time period is also known as the Age of Reason. For example, with Sir Isaac Newton, he would say that order, balance, logic, reason, and scientific inquiry was applied to everything from farming to politics. At this time, you also see writers, artists, politicians gathering in coffee houses to exchange ideas, to conduct their business, and just to plain gossip. At this time period of the Restoration, you're also going to be seeing improvements, living conditions and changes in way of life, and dramatic advances in agriculture. You're also going to see breeding advancements that are going to yield larger animals, and finally you're going to see steam power take over. At this time period, you're also going to see the Industrial Revolution starting up in England, and this is going to change the way of life for all. And conversely, you're also going to see women and children begin to labor for long hours and with low pay. So by the end of this period, around 1798, you're going to see a mass of restless, impoverished workers absolutely exploding, especially in the cities of Great Britain. The language in the Restoration and the Enlightenment period, you see a lot of language being written down. The Dictionary of the English Language of 1755 was written by Samuel Johnson. You're also going to see Robert Lowth write a short introduction of English grammar. Now, this is based on Latin, the rules that often proved inappropriate for English, however. Also, overseas colonization is going to bring new words and increased differences in spoken English. Also at this time period is the Neoclassicist period. Once again, you're going to hear about the stressing of balance, logic, but you're also going to hear sophisticated wit and emotional restraint coming into the literature. You're also going to have the birth of the English novel, and Robinson Crusoe is counted as one of the first novels that we have. Toward the end of the period, poetry began to reflect themes close to the human heart, and this would be the first hints at Romanticism. Again, Romanticism in England starts in 1799. It's the very next period after the Restoration and Enlightenment. Lastly, I want to take a look at satire. It's one of the biggest pieces of literature that comes out of Great Britain in the 18th century. This is the golden age of satire. Satire is a literary technique that mixes criticism with humor and will use laughter as a weapon, usually to encourage social reform. Now, there are two types of satire. One is known as the Horatian satire, that playfully amuses and seeks to correct a vice or a foolishness with a gentle laughter. But you also have the Juvenalian satire, which is a darker kind of laughter. It happens to be quite bitter and criticizes corruption or incompetence with scorn and outrage. This kind of satire also comments on and criticizes society. It also makes fun of a topic by making it seem ridiculous. A lot of times you'll see satire being used by news commentators, political cartoonists, comedians, screenwriters, and songwriters. For example, nowadays in our contemporary times, you might see The Simpsons being using it. For example, you might see them using it towards the educational system, towards sibling rivalry, violence on TV, and even sports. And other TV shows you might see using a lot of satire might be perhaps Saturday Night Live and Mad TV, which will pick with politics and with our social culture, usually with celebrities. Well, then how do you recognize satire? Well, the author may clue the reader in that he is writing satire. They may cite previous satires, and the satiric subject matter and its treatment might be quite different from a normal ideal of writing. First of all, a satire would have concrete, topical, and very personal subjects. It would often allude to the gossip of the moment. This is something that has to be very, very on top of the times. And freshness is important. Nobody cares about a satire 50 or 100 years later. Now, the style of a satire is easy to distinguish because a lot of times it contains cruel and dirty words like cuss words, curse words. A lot of times it might also contain comic words and terms because remember, you're trying to evoke laughter. It uses conversational and non-literary language, and it tries to produce the unexpected. You might hear a lot of topical irony being used. Some of the many weapons of satire that we have are a paradox, antithesis. Another type of a satire might be a parody or an anticlimax. You might see lots of obscenity or violence being used. There should be some vividness and exaggeration with the wording. And of course, all of the different types of irony, whether it's verbal or dramatic, might be used in a satire. So don't forget, for a satire, that is when the reader feels a mixture of both amusement and likely contempt for some social reform. Thank you so much for stopping by for an introduction to the Enlightenment and Restoration periods. If you'd like to learn more about the Enlightenment or the Restoration period, maybe perhaps learn about the type of literature that was actually being written, please leave a comment down below and let me know what more I can cover. And as always, I'd appreciate it if you subscribed. Take care.